Hello, eco travelers. I'm Keisha.
And I'm Sam.
Welcome to our podcast, Green Current, a mindful travel podcast with TravWise. So, on this episode, we will discuss about care, climate, and change. Care, it is connected to the idea of mindful travel because we care about the planet and the people. Climate, which will be our focus because essentially our topics are in relation to climate change and also climate emergency. And the third one, change. So this will be about the importance of reflecting on your habit and trying to change it for the better. So let's talk about mindful travel. What is mindful travel? So for me, essentially, it is a mindset as a traveler that does not extract from the environment. Also, to take time to immerse yourself into local culture instead of seeing traveling as a checklist. I think this is quite outdated. It is for me not about how many places you've been in this world, but it's about how much positive impact you can give to the locals and to these areas that you've visited. And the third one is about being open-minded to very different views in different parts of the world. So for me, that is a mindful travel. So Sam, as my co-host, what do you think mindful travel is?
Yeah, I think in addition to what you said, which I agree with as well, I see mindful travel as being a way of considering the impact of your actions. So you mentioned positive impact. So really digging into the impact that you're having on the places that you visit, the people that inhabit these places. Obviously, that could encompass a broad spectrum of different types of impact. So environmental impact from a global level of carbon emissions down to the micro level of littering and ruining ecosystems in that way. Also your social impact on the people that you meet, your economic impact. So whether the money that you're spending in a place is going to actually help local businesses and local people, or whether it could potentially go into the hands of bigger organizations and further widen the divisions in society. So I guess just like letting this conscientiousness and this sense of responsibility to guide your behavior when you travel to become more positive and constructive on the destination rather than being negative and destructive.
Yeah, that's very good. I really agree with what you're saying. So, yeah, just for our eco travelers, it's time for us to speak more about our background and why we're making TravWise. So basically, I'm the founder, and my background is in international relations and gender studies as well. So originally, I'm from Jakarta, Indonesia, and yeah, in the last decade, I've been sort of all over the place. So I lived in Kyoto, Japan for about 3.5 years for my undergraduate in international relations. And then for a year abroad, again, was in Lund in Sweden for about a year. And currently living in the UK since 2022 when I took my master's in gender studies. So based on these experiences, I do identify myself as part of the diaspora. And this mix of experiences that shaped the way I see the world really inspired me to create TravWise. So I think it would be unfair to just mention climate change as something singular because based on my experience in gender studies and just my experiences traveling, climate and gender is interconnected. And this is because the marginalized groups, which include indigenous women, the queer community, migrant, refugee, and those who are living in conflict and disaster zones, these are the people that have to bear the consequences of climate change the most. So basically they face more risks in like poverty and violence or even death during these emergencies. And it all comes down to the existence of inequalities, which include gender inequality as well, because, they don't have the same access to education, land, or leadership roles. So I think why I'm very passionate about making Travwise, especially this podcast, is for me to really put, awareness to get, people from the marginalized group to, to be represented in the science field, to be leaders, and also in climate decision making, and also to support the minority-led, especially indigenous women-led climate solutions, because these people are the ones who really understand the area and the problems. So when I mention marginalized groups, what I learned is we can't really just list out what it is to be marginalized, and to put it into context, I will never be able to list everyone that is part of the marginalized group, because it's all about the etc, the other, people. So just to give some sort of idea, when I say that phrase. So that's for me. And Sam, so what is your background and why are you interested to be a part of Travwise?
Yeah, thanks, Keisha. I think your perspective is so valuable. We're very lucky to have you as our founder with your experiences in these fields of study and your experiences traveling and living abroad. So yeah, in terms of my involvement in Travwise, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer, and I have a background in digital marketing. When I first met Keisha, I was during a bit of a career break, and when I heard what her plan was with Travwise, I found it to be really inspiring, really exciting. I really agree with the vision that we do need to revolutionize the travel sector. I think tourism could definitely be a tool for solving the climate emergency instead of worsening it. So I think it's just a great cause that we're working towards together now. So we're taking this journey together in the business and with this podcast. So I'm from South London in the UK, and I've actually lived here most of my life. So this is a very different kind of experience to Keisha. I haven't lived abroad before, but I have had plenty of holidays in my youth, family holidays, mostly throughout Europe, Spain, France, Italy, these kinds of places. I was very fortunate that my parents could give me the opportunities to come on these trips with them. So after that, when I grew into adulthood, I had a bit of a long gap where I didn't travel so much, didn't leave the UK at all. Mostly COVID related, I would say. At that time, it wasn't possible to go abroad, but I did also suffer from some kind of travel anxieties, which perhaps we could get into in a future episode. But the things I love to do when I travel often involve the natural world, nature-based activities such as hiking, camping, cycling, swimming, these kinds of things. Even on a couple of occasions, I've gone stargazing in these kind of dark sky areas with minimal light pollution. So really just getting away from the hustle and bustle of things, getting some calm time away from the city and enjoying the natural environment. That's what I like to do when I travel, and I hope that I can inspire others. I hope that we together can inspire others to look for activities like that when they go traveling as well. So yeah, that's kind of my involvement in Travwise and my take on why it's so important.
Yeah, I think both of us are very nature loving. We love doing these activities. On top of what you mentioned, I personally love a little scuba diving. As someone who who's from Indonesia, we have very amazing beaches. So yeah, I think that's what we constantly talk within Travwise. A lot of these activities that would be eco-friendly, but also fun. Now that we have discussed what we meant about mindful travel and you learn a bit more about us, we will continue our segment about good mindful travel habits that we can adopt to our lives. Let's talk about good travel habits to develop. So, from me, I would say sustainable choices are very important. For example, we estimate the carbon emission produced from travel activities. So this is a very good first step to understand the impact of your travel. So on our Lombok tour, we include carbon emission estimation in our info pack. So that's what Travel has been doing. So yeah, how about you? What would be your sustainable choice while you travel, Sam?
So, as we touched on in the last segment, picking these kind of nature-based activities is always a good way to keep the carbon emissions low on your travels. So something I love to do, as we've talked about, is hiking. And I often go hiking with my dad on the Southwest Coast Path. So when we do this, we carry all our possessions on our back and we carry it across the cliffs to our next accommodation. We like to camp wherever that's possible. In the past, we've even done some wild camping. I think something really important to note with wild camping is that you need to be very discreet, and there's a kind of a leave no trace philosophy. You don't want to make a mess, not just because of upsetting a landowner, but because it's bad for the natural ecosystems if you leave lots of litter there or make a mess in any kind of way, or aren't careful about where you're pitching the tent.
Yeah, similarly, actually, during my my time in Japan, so I lived in Kyoto, as I've mentioned. I did a lot of trekking. So there's so many different mountains in Kyoto. And my friend and I, we were, before we finish our program, we just try to go to these different mountains every weekend. So what we did is like we woke up early in the morning. We bring our own food that we cook in our in our Tupperware, and yeah, so we take around 5 to 6 hours one way up, and then another extra 5 to 6 hours down. But yeah, I think it's a very good zero carbon activity, and then I think it's a very good way to mix both nature and also culture, because the fun thing that I didn't know before I decided this is like, wow, every mountain, well, not every actually, most of the mountains have either a temple. So for Buddhists, they go to temples, and there's also shrines as well. So what they do is it's trekking in a mountain is part of their pilgrimage as well. So we can take really beautiful pictures of these shrines and temples as well on top of it, and we can see how the monks live on top of a mountain, which was amazing, to experience that.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, one of them, the highest one called Atago. So basically, it's they believe there's a deity there that will save you from any fire-related problems in your life. So what they do, these Japanese parents bring their children on top of the mountain as a pilgrimage, like just so they believe that they won't get these fire problems if they do that. And they walk really fast, and it's such an inclusive experience, and I see children doing this trek, older people doing this trek. So it's not an ageist activity. So I think it's, everyone can do it, families can do it, friends can do it. I just found it life-changing.
How many temples were on the mountain?
Usually one big one, but so in my experience, I went to if I'm not wrong, 4 to 5 different mountains, and each one has different temple or shrines. So,
Wow.
yeah. So, yeah. How about you? So,
Yeah, I mean, in my hiking, I mean, it's rarely something as exciting as that down in the southwest of England. But we do pass through lots of different small towns and villages, and you do learn a lot about culture. I remember we were heading down into Lyme Regis, and we came across in this tiny wooded section. We came across a very old looking. Rusted kind of metal sculpture of a woman stood there holding a huge fish above her head, or what looked like a fish. It was a bit unclear. It was a bit abstract. And later on, I read up on the history and found out that it was of Mary Anning, the famous fossil hunter. And that was just a very interesting piece of local history to just come across like that. And I think there is something exciting about finding these unexpected treasures of culture, history, information about a place, and an opportunity to learn in that sense.
yeah, absolutely. You can find this historical treasures everywhere. It could be in the north side of the world, the south part of the world, and I wanted to talk a little bit about scuba diving that I mentioned before, because I was born and raised in Indonesia, and I went a lot to the beaches with my friends and my family, and I love swimming because rather than just sitting on the beach and read a book, which is really relaxing thing to do. My sort of beach holiday would be mostly swimming in the ocean, scuba diving, snorkeling. So yeah, it's very eco-friendly. I always tell people to take nothing but photos. I love taking so many photos. But yeah, please, just a reminder, sometimes it is tempting to take stuff from the beach, from the mountain, but it might ruin the ecosystems, as you mentioned before as well. Sometimes the smallest thing we do that is not like a direct impact, like it doesn't affect it directly. We need to be, again, mindful, and not do that, and just keep it safe and just take pictures and keep on walking. And as well, I think it's very important as well to stay at local hostels, homestay, which I did when I with my parents did the Bromo Mountain. We learn more about the local culture and local dialects as well. That was really fun. And also my memory would be just like a lot of interesting food that they have. I think Sam and I we both are very
We're both foodies.
We're foodies. Well, that's all we talk about other than the environment. But yeah, do you want to share any food memories?
Yeah, well, I mean, to go back to the hiking again, I mean, the most recent trip that I did, which was this spring, we were going through a tiny village called Port Reith, and we stayed at a local accommodation there, and the catch of the day was on the menu at the accommodation for dinner. So I ordered that, and you could really taste the freshness. You've probably heard the term farm to table before, how small or large the distance from when it comes out of the sea to when it lands on your plate. And clearly for this fish, it was just a matter of hours rather than weeks, as it may be from a supermarket. So it really enriched the experience. I mean, obviously there are some drawbacks, like picking out a million little bones, but it's kind of part of the fun, I think.
Yeah, I love seafood so much. I think similarly, I remember in Bali with my friend from university, we ate very fresh fish, white fish. And I asked my friend because we went all over Indonesia, or really, and tried different food, and he said I think that was the best food he tried because it was just a very fresh fish. Again, that farm to table experience as well that I experienced. So, yeah, I think we all can learn, about the societal context through food, and that's what matters really. Because I think we talked about this before. Because I think when we travel, we do want to try the local food, or else, for me personally, that wasn't a proper travel experience for me. So. So yeah, is there any other thing we can do, Sam?
Yeah, so another good travel habit would be to really invest some time into developing an awareness of the details of the destination that you're going to. So I'm talking about doing a bit of research about the history, the traditions, and the culture of the place that you're going to, just to help you make sure that you're going to act in a way that's respectful towards the locals, based on their own expectations, their own societal expectations. So I think one thing that's really good to do is leave behind any pre-established assumptions or stereotypes. You don't want these to cloud your interactions with the locals. You don't want to create any inauthentic relationships or relationships that are held back by some sort of invisible psychological barrier. I think also another thing is to try and self-reflect and be self-aware about your own position relative to the people that you're going to encounter, your cultural and national identity, your potential privileges, because that will inevitably impact the way that you're seen, and it may give you an extra level of sensitivity towards the way you behave. So yeah, I think really looking at preparing yourself with the right amount of knowledge just before you go into a place. Keisha, do you have any points about this as well?
Yeah, I think, for example, when I went to Bali, prior to that, I asked my friends who are Balinese, and I was also like scrolling through social media when people talk about Bali. Obviously, Bali is a very, very popular travel destination. So I was taught that there will be offerings, which is like this small, I think, it's in the big of your palm, around that size. It's made from like there are some flowers on it, and also with made from banana leaves, all these stuff. That is, it's a Balinese Hindu traditional thing that they do for good luck. So they put it in front of their shops, the hotels, and sadly, like, many of my friends said, who are local to the area, that many people do step on those, and that's what I experienced when I went to Bali the first time, and it was such a shame that I can see it, that it was stepped on, and I found that many people, Balinese, weren't really bothered to do that. Obviously, tourism is really big there. They don't really want to bother the tourists, but it is so important for us to be mindful. And now that I learn about it, before I wouldn't, I will be way more mindful and not step on it. I know it is quite easy to step on it because it's on the ground, but it is, you're becoming more zen. So when you walk, you just don't walk. You see your surrounding. You're more, you're more, again, mindful about what you step on. And this will actually also help, so you won't step on other things that you don't want to step on. Maybe a bubble gum or something. So it is mindfulness is such a mental thing as well. So yeah, I think local awareness is important. Try to ask questions prior, to be to be interested, to be curious, instead of just let things happen.
Yeah, especially if you already know people that are familiar with the place, may have experience there, or better yet, if they live there. Obviously, there's probably a lot of resources online in forums. I think one thing I would say is to avoid using AI for your research, just because, I mean, this costs huge amounts of energy, the AI usage. So it's really try and minimize that if you can, and also be aware that it could be full of inaccuracies and biases as well. So I would be quite wary of doing that for your research.
Yeah, so on to the next one. I think I always say that we should support small businesses, small local businesses. So we've been trying to avoid going to just big chains or just hotels if we can, or big restaurant chain. Sorry. So your money is better spent on smaller, independent, local businesses, and this is, I think, it's all over the internet. You can do your own research online. Similarly, we can ask your friends about it, your local friends, and it's just more exciting to try different things, different experiences. So yes, Sam, do you have any experience regarding this?
Yeah, I mean, one that came to mind, you mentioned about avoiding big chain restaurants, and I do agree. I mean, I think you're kind of robbing yourself if you do that. If you go, especially if you go to a chain restaurant that you could just go to back in your hometown, it feels like it's taking away all the purpose of traveling. In my personal experience, I've had the good luck to visit Vienna a couple of years ago, and I knew someone that lived there, so I actually got in touch with him, mostly just to catch up as a friend and see how he was getting on, but also to a bonus benefit from that was that I was able to ask him, hey, where can I go to get very authentic Austrian food in Vienna? What kind of local business, local independent restaurant can I go to? And he took us to this lovely underground restaurant that served the most amazing Austrian food, and I just felt like a really rich experience that I really enjoyed. What about yourself?
Yeah, so I think we found it online, my friend and I. So we went to Hokkaido in April 2018, again when I was living there as a student. So went to this local izakaya, which is kind of like a Japanese style bar / restaurant. This one in particular, it looked a bit like a street food-ish because it's outside with a little plastic top. So it was very small. It was cold as well still somehow in April because it's in the northern part of Japan. We're all sitting there on a small table, maybe around 2 to 3 meter. It's quite a small table for like about 10 people sitting next to each other. But it was cold, so it's nice to sit next to each other. I was able to meet locals, have really fun conversations, and I was able to ask for recommendations on what to do next. And I remember I went to another restaurant, and then it wasn't that full, but the food was really good. And then we talked to the owner, and then we were thinking we probably should write down on their Google review. So actually we tried to Google it again a couple months after, and there were more people going there because someone wrote a stellar review, which that's a good idea what to do. Obviously, if you like the food, that's a plus point, And anyway, with these people we met in these izakayas, we were able to find this homestay in a hill. And then we Googled that hill. I remember it was one of the steepest hills in Japan. And we were like, it was quite interesting, but worth it. We were a bit tired that time, honestly, but it was really funny just to, find these facts. And like, wow, we actually went to one of the steepest hills in Japan. So when we got there was this common room. We were entertained by the owner of the homestay. And then he played some tunes with his guitar. And at that time he was making some traditional dried fish, and it was being dried in the common room. So initially, as someone who's Indonesian and half tried dried fish, sometimes it got a little smelly. But you know what? It didn't smell at all. He was being considerate. Obviously, there are people in the common room. Yeah, we met some other guests as well. So yeah, it was just a different experience than just booking a hotel. And I will never forget these tiny moments in my life that will change how I see different cultures, different people. And yeah, I think that makes it every traveling experience unique, you know.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. You really got a special story out of that you wouldn't have if you had just gone to a big chain place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the next good habit to develop for travel, I think learning some language basics, and this one may frighten some people. It would frighten me as well. I mean, it's something I've been a bit remiss on in the past, and I think as someone that lives in the UK and sometimes visits Europe, it's the thing you always hear about visiting European countries. Friends always tell you, oh, don't bother because everyone speaks English. But I mean, not only is that quite disrespectful mindset to go into it with, but it's also quite untrue. I've definitely been in sticky situations because I didn't invest enough time into learning just a few basic phrases off by heart. Just this winter, I went to Rome in Italy, and I had some trouble communicating with taxi drivers and train station staff. So, I mean, these are quite important aspects of the trip. You need to get from A to B, and if you can't communicate properly with the local people, you're gonna struggle. And I think it's definitely a very a takeaway that's had a big impact on me, and now I do feel that the next time I go abroad, I'm going to be really putting more focus and more energy into that, and I think it's better for all parties involved, really. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Obviously, we're not saying that you should be fluent in the language before before you go to the country. Obviously, we all have many of us most of us have phones, and there's so many different apps, you can translate stuff. But yeah, it is better to do communicate in the language of the locals. So even with the help of the phone, you don't have to memorize everything really. But yeah, I think there's another thing that was like important, I think, for you as well, to know these basic phrases that would help you to order food, I think, because some people do have specific dietary restriction, and I think knowing, let's say, if it's halal, then in Japan, like, pork is like buta, so just basic stuff that if you hear it, then you can actually know what they're serving. These kind of things would just help you, and even some numbers really help you. Just 1, 2, 3, and so I think I can, language is such a enriching thing if you can, obviously, I am living abroad. I've lived in different countries. It's not easy. It's a mental thing to be at that point that when you're actually comfortable and confident to speak in different language. But sometimes you just have to do it. I think most locals will be very supportive, and they feel very respected when you do it anyway. And it is a process, but I think the more you travel, I guess it's you'll have that sort of confidence, not just blind confidence, but like that sort of you can feel the necessity more and more each time. And I think it is one thing to travel conveniently, but also it's another thing to be respectful. So yeah, that's just my point. Yeah, so yeah, I think these are the things that we can list out right now. We'll have more episodes in the future. We'll have some guests as well. Let us know if you have any idea what you want to listen about, if you would like to be our guest as well. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, and see you in our next episode.
Yes, see you next time. If you want to get in touch with us, email us at explore@travwise.com.